Hi everyone, my name is Jackie, and yeah, I'm a guy. Although you probably can't say that judging from my appearance. The thing is that my working day has just ended, and I did not have time to change my clothes. Hmm, I guess things haven't become clearer, have they? Yes, I admit, my uniform looks quite unusual, but trust me, this is the only disadvantage in my work. I already got used to my dress and high heels. I'm sure you are intrigued. Definitely watch this video till the end to find out how I managed to get my dream job, albeit with some weird peculiarities. It all started out in quite a trivial manner. I graduated from high school, went to college, moved from my parents' house to a dormitory, and started living the life that I had always dreamed of. There was no control from my mom and dad. I was doing what I wanted, eating what I wanted, was out late, and sometimes even did not come back to the dormitory during the whole night. There were parties, wild nights, and a student fraternity. Everything was cool. My parents supported me by sending money several times a month. I didn't work and didn't see any point in looking for a job because when I suddenly ran out of money, I called my dad and my bank card balance immediately became positive. The first year of studies passed unnoticed. It was the best time in my life. At that moment, I really understood my parents, who said that student years were the coolest and most memorable period. After my summer holidays, an unpleasant surprise, or even two of them, awaited me. Firstly, my parents told me that I was already a grown up and a mature guy, which meant that I could easily find some part time job to work in my free time and provide for myself. On the other hand, I understood that it was impudent for me to depend financially on my mom and dad, but on the other hand, I hadn't ever worked a day in my life. What should I do? Where should I go? Who will hire a person without any experience who can do, well, do nothing, to be honest? It would have been silly to be mad at my parents. After all, they have a lot of worries, as my younger brother and sister were still studying at school. But I also can't say that I went to classes in a good mood. At least many of my friends from the dormitory already had part time jobs in their first year, which meant that they could help me find a job as well. But when I came to college, I learned about the second surprise. Just before the beginning of the academic year, by some ridiculous accident, a fire broke out in our dormitory, and it was exactly on the floor where I lived. The college asked us to find a temporary place to live while renovations were being made. Since repair works involved the unplanned expenses, college management was not even ready to compensate us for the rental costs. While in the first year I was satisfied with my life, the second year began with a real hell for me as I had to look for housing and work at the same time. Of course, when my parents learned that I would have to live in a rented apartment for a couple of months, they agreed to help me financially, but I understood that this money would not be enough for me to lead my usual life. The issue with housing was resolved very quickly. Together with other guys with whom we were neighbors in the dormitory, we rented an apartment near the college. 6 people settled in 2 small rooms, but this was common for us. It was like in the dormitory. The situation with work was much worse. Firstly, this was because for a student in general, it is difficult to find some part time work with a flexible schedule. Secondly, I rejected everything that my friends offered me. Why did I do this? Well, I did it just because I did not imagine myself as a loader, a pizza delivery man, or a waiter in a fast food restaurant. In fact, I did not understand how it would feel not to cuddle with my dear bed or have a rest after classes, but go to work instead in the snowy or rainy weather. That's just horrible. To be honest, I postponed the search as long as I could, apparently hoping for some miracle to happen. I justified myself by a cold, a heavy workload at college, or by something else. But once, my dad refused to top up the balance when I called to ask him to do this. He said that this month they already sent me larger than usual amount and just couldn't afford to give me more. I had no choice. So I bought the first available newspaper with vacancies from a print kiosk, opened it at a random page, pointed it with my finger without looking at it, and dialed the phone number that was indicated here. Why did I do this? It's just that otherwise the job search would definitely be postponed again, and I would come up with a million excuses for myself. It's funny, but fate chose a job of a cleaner for me. And of course, I would not have agreed to it if I had not seen how much money the employer promised to pay. The salary was almost $4,000 a month, and this was for an 8-hour working day, while others, for example, office employees, worked 12-hour shifts for the same money. I decided that I was definitely lucky, as I pointed to such an option. I would not have noticed it myself. I even would not have thought to look at the page with service personnel vacancies. So I called the indicated number and talked to the manager, Mrs. Kim. She asked me a couple of questions and then invited me to a personal meeting. When I looked at the address of my place of work, I decided that I would do my best to make it mine, as it was located really close to the college. This was very convenient. A small 3-story building didn't really strike the eye. As for me, I never paid attention to it, passing by it hundreds of times and did not think about what exactly was inside it. There were neither signs nor lights in the building. The windows were covered with thick blinds. There was a single heavy iron door. I knocked it 3 times, as agreed, and was invited inside. When I got there, I almost immediately realized what kind of place it was. This was a private and apparently very elite nightclub. There was a small hall with sofas and tables, a dance floor, a bar counter, poles, and stairs leading to the upper floors, where the VIP rooms were probably hidden behind the doors. At that point, it became clear why even an ordinary cleaner received such a salary there. Apparently, the establishment brought excellent income. The tall security guy who met me at the entrance took me to the manager of the club. On the phone, Mrs. Kim promised that she would explain to me the essence of the work and my responsibilities in person. But she started the conversation by setting one condition. If I planned to work for them, I was supposed to learn to keep my mouth shut, because everything that happened in the club was to remain inside it. Clients of the club were famous and influential people who did not need any problems at all. The club was open every day from 8 p.m. until 4 a.m. At this time, according to the schedule where I was going to have 2 working days and then 2 days off, I needed to be present at the club so that at the very first request of the administrator, I would be able to quickly clean the VIP rooms or the hall if some emergency happened there. The manager said that there are days when the VIP rooms have to be cleaned every half hour, but sometimes the administrator calls the cleaner only 2 to 3 times for the whole night, and the rest of the time, the worker may sleep without any interruptions. Despite the night schedule, I was more than okay with all the working conditions. I even felt anticipation and was eager to take up my duties. That same night, I had my first shift. From 8 to 11 p.m., it was calm there. Rarely guests were sitting at tables, talking and drinking. It was even somehow quiet for a nightclub. But at midnight, I changed my opinion. An entertaining show began, and the hall was immediately filled with numerous visitors. There were women and men, both young and old ones. There were really quite a few famous people among them, so I realized that Mrs. Kim's warnings were not a joke. During the night, I managed to work and sleep. I can't say that cleaning VIP rooms after guests is a very pleasant experience, but for such a salary, it was possible to put up with it. Of course, I lied to my friends. I said that I got a job of a night security guard in a jewelry store, and they easily believed it. After a couple of weeks, I became friends with all the staff at the club. Almost all of them were students who were looking for a part-time job and found such a profitable type of place. And while some people might think that working in such an institution was immoral, I did not care at all. I received a large amount of money into my account every week and was happy. I even told my parents that I no longer needed their financial support as I could provide for myself. And probably, I would have continued to work as a cleaner if not for one case. The administrators of the club, who met and saw off the guests, also worked according to the schedule with 2 working days after 2 weekends. Caitlin worked with me more often than others. We were about the same age and even somewhat similar in terms of appearance. Some people thought that we were siblings. And then one day, Caitlin did not show up for work during her shift. Of course, the manager immediately started calling and looking for her, but she was not available on her phone. She called another administrator, but it turned out she was out of town together with her parents. It was impossible to leave the club without an administrator. That's why, after looking at me carefully, Mrs. Kim offered me to engage in a little adventure, namely to pretend to be a girl and stand at the reception. First of all, Caitlin and I were similar, as I said before, which meant that no one would notice the substitution, especially if I wore a wig and a dress. I've never been tall, nor had broad shoulders, which was also a positive aspect in this situation. Secondly, at that time, I had already worked in the club for a couple of months and knew perfectly well what administrators were supposed to do. This meant that I could quickly find my bearings, and we would not have to keep customers waiting. I had some doubts, but Mrs. Kim said she would pay me $1,000 for the shift, so I immediately agreed. I was terribly uncomfortable wearing a short dress and high heels. The hair from the wig was constantly getting into my mouth, and false eyelashes prevented me from blinking normally. But even under such conditions, I did an excellent job performing the duties of an administrator, smiling to guests in a friendly manner and escorting them to the tables and VIP rooms. When the working day, or rather night, ended, I could hardly stand on my feet, but Mrs. Kim praised me and said that I had done well. Also, as strange as it may sound, she didn't mind if I became an administrator, but to be honest, I still had to pretend to be a girl because this was one of the club's rules. I wanted to take some time to think, but sly Mrs. Kim wrote on a napkin the salary that I could receive as an administrator, so I agreed again. I've never dreamed of such money. Basically, from that day on, I changed my mop and cleaner's uniform for pretty dresses and high heels. This may seem strange to some people, but I'm really satisfied with my work, and I love it very much. I can't tell my friends about it or invite them to the club, but I have enough money to rent a luxurious apartment and throw a party there. Of course, looking at my standard of living, many people do not believe that the salary of a night guard is my only income, but I'm just laughing it off in response. I'm definitely not going to reveal the truth. My parents also ask where I got the money for expensive clothes, a rented apartment, and the latest smartphone model, but I also lie to them that I work in several places, having enough time to study. They would definitely be shocked after finding out where their son actually works. Recently, Mrs. Kim said that she planned to talk with the owner of the club about my job as an administrator, but without dressing up as a pretty girl. Many clients praise me, and sometimes leave a tip for my smile or polite communication. Tell us, would you agree to change gender to get your dream job with a huge salary? Or do you think that I'm a freak obsessed with money and ready for all sorts of crazy things for this? Give your answers in the comments. I will definitely read everything. If you like this video, do not forget to click on the thumbs up button below it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so as not to miss new videos. And that's it for today. Bye-bye, everyone.